I slammed the truck door behind me and dashed toward the barn, my heart pounding louder than my boots crunching on the gravel. The sky was fading into dusk, yet every light on my ranch was dark and not a single bulb on, not even the security ones that should have stayed lit all night. That was my first warning sign. Then I spotted her, Karen, crouched over the main power box with insulated wire cutters in her gloved hands. I froze. She wore a blue hoe vest like she owned the place, her hair puffed up wild like a scared raccoon. She was mumbling under her breath as she tugged at the cables feeding electricity to my ranch. "You don't have any right to do that," I yelled, stomping toward her and pulling out my phone. Her head whipped around, pale in the moonlight. "You're not supposed to be here," I said. "You said you'd be gone for a week." She dropped the cutters before I could even blink. Then, quick as a flash, she pulled out her own phone and shouted into it, 911. "Yes, I'm being attacked." He just showed up with a weapon. I stood there, stunned, a phone in one hand, truck key in the other, when I heard sirens faintly sounding in the distance. Let me backtrack so you can understand how it spiraled into this madness. My name's Daniel Rodas. I'm 57, a veteran, and I own a ranch just outside a quiet little town in Montana. 15 years ago, my wife Marlene and I bought this land and invested every penny of our savings into making a life here. Our ranch isn't some fancy place with granite counters or spa bathrooms. It's rugged, dusty, smelling of horses and high, but it's ours. The main house is modest. We've got a few barns, fenced pastures, a vegetable garden, and my late dad's old workshop where I still carve wood on weekends. Here's the important part. My ranch isn't part of any HOA, but that never stopped Karen. Karen Morgan heads the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. She lives about half a mile down the road in one of those gated lifestyle communities built 5 years ago. Think golf carts, matching mailboxes, weekly lawn inspections, and neighbors who smile with their teeth but not their eyes. Somehow, Karen decided that my private, unincorporated ranch outside any HOA boundary was her business. It started small. A flyer taped to my gate inviting me to join the HOA for better community protection and higher property values. I crumpled it and tossed it in the burn barrel. The next week, she showed up in person, clipboard in hand, pastel sweater, friendly smile. "Hi, I'm Karen from Willow Creek," she said. "We noticed your property borders ours, and we'd love to invite you to join the HOA. You'd get shared services like pest control and lawn trimming." I smiled politely. "Thanks, but I'm not interested." That should have been the end of it. But the flyers kept coming, then emails, then phone calls. I never gave her my number, so she must have gotten it from someone in town. Then came the inspections. One morning, I caught a man in slacks wandering through my pasture, snapping pictures of my fence. "Excuse me," I said, stepping out in my pajamas. "Who are you?" "HOA inspector," he said. "Cool as you please. Just documenting violations." "Violations?" I asked, confused. "This wire fence is rusted. Safety hazard. You're trespassing," I snapped. "I'm not part of your HOA." He left, but things only got worse. Karen filed complaints with the county, called animal control on me twice. Once, she claimed my goats were aggressive. Another time, she said my roosters were crowing at illegal hours. It was clear she wasn't going to stop. So when Marlene surprised me with tickets for a 3-day fishing trip upstate, I almost didn't go. But she insisted. "Go clear your head," she said. "She won't touch the ranch." Famous last words. I left Thursday morning, said goodbye to my ranch, double-checked the locks, and asked my neighbor Sam to keep an eye on things. Sam's in his 70s, doesn't like drama, and mostly minds his own business. He agreed to check in but warned, "Karen won't do anything that crazy. You'll be fine." But by Saturday afternoon, something felt wrong. My gut twisted. Call it a veteran's instinct or just knowing my land too well. I sensed trouble. I packed up early, left my buddies at the lake, and drove straight back. As I neared the ranch, something caught my eye right away. The outer gate was ajar and not wide open, but not shut either. And the private property and no trespassing sign I always kept posted was gone. I rolled slowly down the gravel driveway, headlights bouncing off the fences and tree trunks. When I pulled up to the main house, that's when I saw Ida. Every single light was off. That's when I spotted Karen. But before I dive back into that night, let me introduce the key players in this whole mess. There's me, Daniel Rodis, retired Marine, private, quiet, I keep to myself unless someone crosses me. Then there's Karen Morgan, the self-appointed Ho Queen Bee. She's in her late 50s, married to a guy I've only ever seen on Sia. He looked like he was blinking so's in Morse code. Next is Sam Whitaker, my neighbor, an old-school farmer who doesn't trust smartphones, owns 3 cows, a shotgun, and enough stories to fill a library. He's been here long before me and usually minds his own business. And finally, Marlene, my wife. She's my hearted, gentle, patient, and somehow always right. Months ago, she warned me about Karen's obsession. Back to that night Karen was screaming into her phone, pretending I was the threat. I didn't say a word, I just recorded everything. She kept shouting things like, "He's threatening me. He has a weapon. I fear for my life." I scanned my ranch. Dead silent, no one else in sight. If the cops believed her, things could get ugly fast. I slowly raised both hands and said calmly, "Karen, step away from the power box." She ignored me. Then the red and blue lights flashed down the dirt road as 2 county deputies pulled up, their tires crunching on gravel. Karen pointed wildly at me. "That's him. That's the man. He came at me with a weapon." One deputy stepped toward me. The other moved to Karen. I kept my hands up, phone still recording. "Sir," the deputy said, "what's going on here?" I opened my mouth to explain when a loud bang echoed behind us. Someone had broken into my workshop. A door slammed, wood splintered. Karen, the cops, and I all spun toward the noise. My blood ran cold and no one else was supposed to be on my property, not even Sam. Then it hit me, Karen wasn't working alone. The deputy's hand shot to his holster. "Stay right here," he ordered, eyes flicking between me and the shadowy outline of my workshop. The other officer pulled Karen aside. "Ma'am, you need to back up. This could be dangerous." Karen's face went as white as chalk. "Yeah, I don't know what that was. I swear I'm alone. I just came to do what exactly?" The deputy raised an eyebrow. "You said you were being attacked, but now there's a break-in happening on this man's property." Karen fumbled with her phone like it was a lifeline. "It's a misunderstanding." The deputies exchanged looks. One radioed for backup, while the other motioned for me to stay put. I didn't argue. I've been in enough scrapes to know when to let officers do their jobs. But I wasn't about to let Karen slip away. As they turned toward the workshop, I lowered my phone just enough to whisper, "Recording saved." I glanced at Karen. She looked genuinely nervous now. Her eyes kept darting toward the workshop like something or someone was in there who wasn't supposed to be. Within 2 minutes, backup arrived, another cruiser and the county K-9 unit. Flashlights cut through the night like search beams. One officer drew his gun and shouted, "Whoever's in there, come out with your hands up." For a tense moment, nothing. Then the slow creak of a door opening. Out stepped a man I'd never seen before, a mid-30s. Camo jacket, grease-stained jeans, clutching a bag full of what I recognized as my power tools. He froze like a deer caught in headlights. "Whoa, hey, I thought this place was abandoned," he stammered. The officer quickly surrounded him, disarmed, and cuffed him. The whole thing happened fast. I turned to Karen. "Friend of yours?" She opened her mouth but shut it again. "Never seen him in my life," she said, a little too loudly. The officer who had spoken to her earlier didn't look convinced. "Ma'am," he said, "you were caught near the main power box, and now we've got a man robbing the workshop at the same time. You'd better start talking." Karen stammered, "Yeah, I came to leave a notice. I just wanted to make sure Mr. Rodis knew he needed to remove some items that were lowering property values." "You mean on my property?" I cut in, stepping forward. "You trespassed while I was away." Karen's face flushed red. "You left it unattended. The grass was too high. Someone had to do something." "You clearly can't maintain the place." "I've got cameras everywhere, Karen," I said flatly. "Even the ones you didn't see. You'll be on tape cutting wires with tools. And now you're trying to pin your mess on me." That's when the man they had cuffed said something that changed everything. "She hired me." Everyone turned toward him. "She told me I'd be in and out in 10 minutes. The man said the owner was gone and wouldn't even notice a few things missing. Promised me $500 if I grabbed some workshop equipment for her. A heavy silence fell. Karen blinked fast. That's a lie. He's lying. She spat, but the damage was already done. The officers separated them and began taking formal statements. I gave them access to my camera footage stored on the cloud, which I could pull up right from my phone. Scrolling through the app, I found exactly what I needed. There she was, caught on video, a Karen rolling up in her golf cart, carrying a canvas bag full of tools, heading straight to my electrical panel. 10 minutes later, the man in camo showed up and broke into the workshop. The evidence was clear. Still, the sheriff wasn't ready to make arrests without a full report. You'll both be investigated, he told Karen and the man, and I suggest you don't leave town. Karen was put in the back of the patrol car but wasn't handcuffed yet. Her face was flushed, and she muttered something about protecting the community. I stood there, arms crossed, staring at the wreckage of the power still out, my barn dark, the workshop door splintered. My goats were wide awake, restless, bleeding from minor cuts like the sky itself was falling. Then my phone rang. It was Sam. Daniel, he said, out of breath. I need to tell you something. Karen came to me 2 days ago, he said. Offered me money to give her your travel schedule. Said it was for some property audit or something. I told her to get lost. I stood frozen. She offered you money to spy on me? I barely got the words out. Yeah, Sam said. But that's not all. She told me she planned to teach you a lesson. I didn't understand what he meant until I saw the lights off tonight and called you. I let out a low whistle, staring at the dark silhouette of my house. She hadn't just trespassed, she'd orchestrated the whole thing. She knew exactly when I'd be gone, brought someone with her to loot the place, and when caught, tried to flip the story, making me look like the aggressor. But I knew this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. As the patrol car pulled away from my driveway, I saw her glance back at me through the window. Even though she was the one in trouble, she smiled a slow, cold smile like she had one last card up her sleeve. I had a sick feeling in my gut that this nightmare was far from finished. 3 days after Karen was caught red-handed and taken in for questioning, I was in my workshop, hammering a new plank into the busted door frame. The wind whistled through the hills, and the only sound louder than my hammer was the silence of the power lines still disconnected. The utility company told me Suminia had filed a disconnection request in my name. Fraudulent, malicious, but complicated enough that it would take days for them to legally restore the power without a full investigation. So there I was, running on backup generators, cooking canned beans on a camping stove, and taking cold showers like I was back in boot camp. Marlene kept calling from her sister's place, worried. Are you okay? Are you sure I shouldn't come back early? I told her the truth. I'm not okay, March. But you're safer where you are. Karen's silence was worse. That smile, seen through the backseat window of the patrol car, that image haunted me. It wasn't the smile of someone who got caught. It was the smile of someone who wanted me to believe she got caught. I let my guard down. And I'll admit, part of me wanted to believe it was over, that the police had it handled, that she was scared enough to back off. But 2 days later, Sam showed up at my door with something that made my stomach drop. A printed flyer, in bold letters, "Community vote to remove dangerous neighbor from our area. Let's protect our children and homes from the threat next door." Underneath was a photo of me mid-yawn, taken from some creepy angle, like it was snapped through binoculars. She posted this on the Willow Creek bulletin board, Sam said, handing it over. I tore it down the moment I saw it, frozen as I read the lies. "She's telling folks you threatened her with a weapon," Sam went on. "The sheriff let you off because you're a veteran, called you unstable." Unstable? I repeated, stunned. "Listen," Sam said, "the scariest part is Karen knew exactly what she was doing. Whisper enough lies, play the victim loud enough, and in a place like ours, quiet, proud, full of folks who trust what they hear at church or the grocery store, she could do serious damage. I couldn't let that happen, so I did something I hadn't done in years. I cleaned up, shaved my beard down, put on a collared shirt, and drove into town. At the community hall, Willow Creek HOA was holding a public meeting, and there was Karina, bold as ever, right at the front of the room, clicker in hand, slideshow behind her. As you can see, She was saying when I walked in, "We are not safe while individuals like this live unchecked among us." Every eye in the room turned to me, some narrowed, some surprised. Karen's smile didn't waver. "Well, look who decided to join us," she chirped, acting like she was hosting a birthday party. "Please, Mr. Rodis, do you have something to say?" I stepped forward, keeping my hands calm at my sides, eyes scanning the crowd. I noticed mothers clutching their purses and elderly folks leaning in, curious. I said clearly, "Yes, I have something to say." I pulled my phone from my pocket, walked up to the projector cable, and plugged in. The screen flickered, then displayed the security footage of Karen at my electrical panel, the man she hired sneaking into my workshop, her calling 911 and screaming false claims. I let the video play out in silence. When it ended, I said, "This is who you're trusting." A heavy hush fell over the room. Karen's face flushed in unnatural red. "That video is out of context," she shrieked. "You don't know what he did before it started rolling." I looked her dead in the eyes. "The full footage is already with the sheriff, along with your little flyer." Someone in the crowd stood up, an elderly woman, gray hair tucked in a neat bun. "Karen," she said softly, "you told us this man was waving a weapon." Karen faltered. "Yeah, I thought he was. It was dark. He scared me." Another man stood up. "You hired someone to rob his place." That guy admitted it to the cops. Karen opened her mouth but no words came out. The room turned against her. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just unplugged my phone and said, "I came here to defend my name, not destroy hers." I ask you all to use your heads and your hearts before you believe the next story you're told. Then I walked out. Sam caught up with me in the parking lot. "Well, that was a damn mic drop," he chuckled. "You think she's done now?" "No," I said quietly. "I think she's just getting started." And I was right. When I got home, my gate was wide open again. This time, my livestock had been let loose: goats, chickens, even Daisy the cow roaming toward the woods. In the dirt by the gate was a small wooden stake with a laminated note taped to it. It read, "You were warned. HOA will take action if you continue to resist community standards." The wind picked up, and I realized Karen wasn't acting alone anymore. She brought others with her, and this war had just turned into a siege. I stood at the gate, gripping the laminated note, heart pounding like a war drum. The goats were halfway into the woods already, chickens scattering across the dirt road, and Dacia, the laziest cow alive, was trotting like she'd just discovered freedom. But none of that scared me. What scared me was the message, "HOA will take action if you continue to resist community standards." It wasn't signed, but I knew Karen, and now it wasn't just Karen anymore. She had help. My property was under coordinated attack. I wasted no time. I called Sam, who showed up in 10 minutes with a bucket of grain and a rope. Together, we herded the animals back. It took us nearly 2 hours in the fading light. Daisy refused to move until Sam bribed her with half a watermelon from his truck. As we were keyed, Sam muttered, "This is more than just Karen throwing a tantrum. Someone else had to cut this gate wire. Look how clean it is, like bolt cutters." And he was right. The chain was sliced clean through. Deliberate. After we secured the animals and locked everything up tight, I drove straight to the sheriff's office. Deputy Hanson was at the front desk. "Back again, Mr. Rodis?" he greeted. "Yeah," I said, placing the note on the counter. "They just escalated. Somebody cut my gate and let my animals loose. Left this behind." Hanson read the message and whistled. "That's a threat," he said plainly. "Can I file this officially?" I asked. "I want it on record. If they think I'm going to get scared, they're wrong, but I want a paper trail." He nodded and started typing. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my porch with a thermos of coffee and my old hunting rifle resting across my lap, not to use it, but to send a message. I left the porch light on and made sure my cameras were running. I backed up to 3 drives now, cloud, USB, and a second phone I kept hidden. At 3:17 a.m., I saw headlights. A silver sedan drove slowly past the ranch, paused at the mailbox, then disappeared down the road. I jotted down the time. I knew every car in the area. That wasn't one of them. The next morning, I went to the hardware store and bought a stronger chain for the gate, trail cams with night vision, and reinforced padlocks. I installed everything by lunchtime. Later that afternoon, Marlene called again. They haven't left you alone, have they? No, I admitted. But don't worry, I'm keeping things under control. I know you, she said. You won't back down, just be careful. She was right. I wasn't about to back down. I'd fought real wars. I wasn't going to lose my land to a woman in capri pants holding a clipboard. But things got worse. The next day, I went into town to get supplies. When I returned, something felt wrong. The house was too quiet. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside and froze. My living room had been ransacked. Cushions slashed. The wall-mounted TV was gone. My toolbox dumped out. Tools scattered across the floor. I rushed to the kitchen. The back window was shattered. The frame still had bits of glove fibers on it. Someone had broken in, but nothing else was stolen. No jewelry, no money, just the TV and the power tools from the workshop area. The same kind of things the last guy Karen hired had tried to steal. I called the sheriff again. This time they sent someone immediately. Deputy Reed showed up within 30 minutes. He walked through the house, shaking his head. Looks like a targeted hit. Same kind of stuff stolen. Weird thing is, most thieves grab whatever they can. This was selective. I nodded grimly, because it's not about theft. Reed looked at me. You think this is still Karen? She's not doing this alone anymore, I said. She's organized something, a team, neighbors, or worse. She's hiring people. Reed jotted notes. We'll increase patrols in your area, but off the record, Daniela, if you catch them, don't do anything stupid. I won't, I said. But I was lying, because I had a plan. Later that evening, I rewatched the footage from my new trail cams. That's when I caught Ida, a grainy image, but clear enough to recognize the face. One of the men who came to the townhome meeting, a younger guy wearing a Willow Creek polo shirt, sitting 2 rows behind Karen. Now he was outside my fence last night, cutting my chain and releasing my animals. He wasn't just a neighbor, he was part of it. I printed the image. I wasn't ready to confront him yet, but I would build my case. The next morning, I went to Sam's place. He opened the door, rubbing sleep from his eyes. You alright? I handed him the printout. Know him? Sam leaned in, squinting. That's Kyle. Lives in Unit 18. Karen's nephew. I should have known a nephew muscle. Probably the one who smashed my window. I headed home, locked every entrance, and started making a full report. I was going to hand everything over to the sheriff and the town council. Karen had crossed too many lines, but she wasn't done, because just after sunset, I heard the sound of tires again. This time, they weren't sneaky. A black SUV pulled right into my driveway, brights on. I stepped outside cautiously, hand resting on my phone. The doors opened. Out stepped Kylie and Karen. But that wasn't the worst part. The passenger door opened, and a third figure stepped out wearing a county utility jacket. My stomach sank. Karen had brought someone from the utility company, and they were. The man in the county jacket started walking toward my electrical panel again. Karen looking smug with her arms crossed. We've got official clearance now, she said. I shouted, get off my property. You have no right. But the man held up a clipboard. We're here to verify an order of disconnection and safety inspection under an emergency clause signed by the HOA. I blinked, stunned. You can't do that. My property isn't even under HOA jurisdiction. They kept moving faster now. Kyle reached for the breaker box. I yelled again, back away now. Karen just smiled and said one thing before everything went dark. You brought this on yourself, Daniel. Then, just like that, the entire ranch went black. The lights cut out like a bullet straight to the chest. To my porch light, the barn flood lamps, even the soft hum of the backup generator I'd buried near the workshop. I stood there in the darkness, fists clenched, heart racing. Turn it back on, I roared. But Kyle and the fake utility man just turned away, heading back to the SUV like it was another ordinary day at the office. Karen lingered behind, staring at me with a gleam in her eye like a cat toying with a dying bird. You could have just joined the HOA, Daniel. You made this hard. I took a slow step forward. You just committed a felony. She shrugged. We'll see what the paperwork says. They got into the SUV and drove off, tires kicking up dust like an insult. I stood there, chest heaving, the smell of dry grass and diesel thick in the air. That was it. They weren't just harassing me anymore. They were trying to break me, force me off my land. Because if you can't beat a man like me legally, you burn him down slowly until he quits. But they didn't know me. I was raised harder than this. I'd fought through war zones, buried friends, survived with nothing but a knife and instinct. I wasn't going anywhere. That night, I called the utility company from Sam's landline and explained everything. They were shocked. "We didn't send anyone to your property," the manager said. "No orders were filed under your name, and no employee was scheduled for your area." I paused. "You're saying that man wasn't from your office?" "No, sir. He impersonated a county worker." I gripped the phone tighter. "That's a federal offense." "Yes, it is." They promised to send a real technician the next morning and urged me to file an official police report. But I didn't wait. I gathered all my footage, trail cam images, porch cam video, phone recordings, and drove straight to the sheriff's office that night. Deputy Hansen's jaw tightened as he watched the clips. "That's Kyle Morgan," he said. "And that fake utility guy looks like Rick Davies. Used to work for the power company 2 years ago but was let go for misconduct." I added, "Karen's pulling strings. She's got people helping her who think this is some righteous cause. They think they're cleaning up the neighborhood." "Well," Hansen said, standing, "they're about to get cleaned up by the law." He took my files, filed an official felony report, and said a detective would be assigned within 48 hours. But I wasn't going to wait 48 hours to protect my home. I went home, fired up my emergency generator by hand, and reconnected the essentials of the freezer, fridge, a few lights, cameras. Then I made a decision. It was time to hit back, not with violence, but with exposure. I compiled all the evidence: cut footage, break-ins, the fake utility visit, even the community flyer into one video. I titled it, "How My Ho Neighbor Tried to Take My Ranch by Force and the Truth About Willow Creek." Then I posted it everywhere: YouTube, Facebook groups, Reddit forums, even emailed it to the local news station. Within 24 hours, it had 30,000 views. The next day, 2 things happened. 1, the utility company arrived, confirmed the damage, and issued a public statement condemning the impersonation. They offered to cover the cost of repairs. And 2, a news van showed up on my gravel road. A young reporter named Clarice hopped out, mic in hand, eyes wide. "Mr. Rodis," Clarice with Channel 6, "is it true your neighbor tried to cut your power and take over your ranch?" I sighed, glancing toward the distant Willow Creek gates. "Yeah," I said. "But now the whole country's watching." We did the interview right there on the porch. Chloe filmed the barn, the damaged power box, the laminated the thread on the fence caught my eye again when the story aired that evening. My situation made the local headlines, and just like that, Karen's name turned toxic in Willow Creek. By the following week, 5 HO board members had resigned. 2 homeowners filed lawsuits. Kyle vanished. But Karen? She wasn't finished. While the world was reacting to the video, I was busy patching up the damage. Real work, cleaning up my life. Then, late one afternoon, it happened. I was fixing a latch on the chicken coop when I spotted Sam running across the pasture, waving his arms wildly. I dropped my wrench and met him halfway. "Daniel," he panted, "you need to see this, right now." He pulled me toward the fence line at the edge of his property. There, in the soft dirt between his land and mine, stood 3 men in hard hats and reflective vests. They weren't carrying tools, they had blueprints, and behind them was a tall sign planted firmly in the ground: "Future site of Willow Creek Ranch Estates Phase 2. My blood ran ice cold. They weren't just trying to ruin me, they were trying to build over me. Karen had submitted a proposal to rezone my land. She wanted to tear down my ranch and replace it with luxury condos. And the worst part? The sign had a county seal on it. That meant someone, somewhere, had approved it. I stared at that sign like it was a tombstone, like it already marked the death of my land, my peace, my home. Future site of Willow Creek Ranch Estates, Phase 2. Tall, bold, freshly planted into my soil. Not Sam's land, not county land, mine. Sam was shaking with rage beside me. "They didn't even ask," he said. "They just walked right onto your property like it belonged to them." The 3 men noticed us watching. One of them, a young guy with aviator sunglasses and a rolled-up clipboard, gave me a nod and a lazy wave, like I was the hired help. I didn't wave back. I marched toward them, boots scrunching dry grass, the wind picking up dust like it knew a storm was coming. The guy with the clipboard stepped forward. "Hey there, sir, you must be the owner. You'll be glad to know this entire section is about to go upscale. Very exciting development opportunity." I kept walking until I was inches from his face. "You're standing on private property." He blinked. "Oh, I thought this was part of the HOA zone." "It's not, never has been, never will be." Another man stepped forward, holding a county file. "Actually, sir, this area has been submitted for rezoning under a rural to suburban conversion initiative via Phase 2 expansion. The paperwork's in process with the Planning Commission." I narrowed my eyes. "In process, so not approved yet?" "Technically no, but a recommendation has been made." "A recommendation by who?" He looked down at the file, hesitating. "Planning Director Karen Morgan." "Of course." Karen Morgan, HOA President, self-appointed Queen of Willow Creek, now apparently County Planning Director. No wonder she'd been so calm. While I was chasing loose animals and fighting break-ins, she was filling out forms and sliding papers across desks. She wasn't just harassing me anymore, she was trying to erase me. "I want that sign off my property," I said coldly. "We were told this lot was unclaimed." One man mumbled. "It's my ranch," I said, teeth clenched. "Registered deed, inherited, and paid for, and unless you have a court order, you're trespassing." The men exchanged nervous looks. Slowly, they began pulling the sign out of the ground. I didn't leave until they got back in their truck and drove off. Sam let out a low whistle. "Daniel, this is big." "She's pulling county-level strings now." I nodded. "Yeah, and now she's trying to do it legally." Back at the house, I called Marlene immediately. "She's trying to rezone the land," I told her. "Turn it into condos?" "What? That's impossible." "No, it's happening and it's dirty." "I'm going to the county office tomorrow." The next morning, I dressed like I was going to war. Boots polished, button-up shirt, hat in hand. I walked into the Jefferson County Clerk's office and asked to see all rezoning applications for the Willow Creek area. The lady at the desk hesitated, then handed me a thick file. Sure enough, there it was. A rezoning application for my parcel 721 submitted 2 weeks ago under a community beautification plan. Signed, Karen Morgan. I flipped the page. There it was, the recommendation for approval. Typed in small print, "Subject parcel is under consideration for expansion due to HOA-backed neighborhood development needs." I almost laughed. Needs? What about my needs? My livestock? My history? My entire life. I gripped the file tight. I copied every page, leaving with a stack so thick it needed a rubber band to hold it all together. That evening, Sam and I sat down and combed through every line. "This one here," he pointed. "She claims the property's abandoned." That was a lie. "And here, it says no active utility services due to disconnection." She caused that herself. It all started to make sense. Karen was building a paper trail full of lies to make my land look abandoned and neglected. That's how she planned to steal it by making it seem like no one was home. And honestly, it might have worked if I hadn't come back early. I called Chloe, the reporter. "This is bigger than just an HOA feud," I told her. "Karen's abusing her position to try and steal privately owned land." She agreed to meet me the next day to film an update. I handed her the file, showed her the fake sign, and introduced her to Sam, who verified every detail. That night, the news story aired. Local HOA president accused of land grab scheme. County investigation launched. Karen's face was plastered all over the screen. For the first time, she didn't look smug. She looked worried. But worried didn't mean finished. 2 days later, I found a letter nailed to my gate. Not mailed, nailed. A thick envelope with no return address. My name scratched in block letters on the front. Inside was a court summons. Karen had filed a civil suit against me, for community disruption, property endangerment, and public slander. She was suing me as a man she tried to rob, ruin, and erase. My hands trembled, but I wasn't afraid, because finally, everything was going to come out in court, under oath, and I had every document, every video, every recording ready. But what I didn't expect was what came next. The day before the court date, Sam burst into my barn, phone shaking in his hand. "Daniel," he gasped, "you need to sit down." "What's wrong?" He held up his phone. On the screen was a post from the local forum. Breaking: County audit reveals massive fraud in HOA records. Investigation targets Karen Morgan. Sam whispered. They found forged signatures, rezoning bribes, fake county ID numbers, a broken bar. Then he said words that made my jaw drop. They issued a warrant for her arrest this morning. I stared at Sam like the air had been knocked out of me. A warrant? I barely whispered. He nodded hard, shoving the phone closer. She's gone, Daniel. There on the screen was her face, no longer smug, no longer untouchable. It was a mugshot, grainy, but real. The article said the county audit uncovered Karen had forged over a dozen signatures on rezoning requests, funneled HOA funds into fake neighborhood upgrades, and impersonated a planning official using the identity of a retired worker, Rick Davis, the same man who cut my power. It was all unraveling: the fraud, the threats, the fake utility work, the harassment, all part of Karen's master plan to push me off my ranch. But now, she was the one being hunted. I sank down onto a hay bale, breathing hard, staring out at my pasture. My goats grazed peacefully. Daisy the cow swatted flies with her tail, like nothing had happened. For the first time in months, the world felt quiet. But it wasn't over yet. Not until I faced her in court. The next morning, I showed up at the courthouse for the civil hearing Karen had filed. Me as a danger to the community. Her lawyer was there alone. He looked pale, sweaty, and honestly embarrassed to be associated with her. I thought, I'm assuming she's not showing up, I said dryly. He cleared his throat. We broken bar. We are requesting a delay in the hearing. The judge raised an eyebrow. What grounds? The judge asked. Miss Morgan is currently unavailable. The courtroom chuckled. Even the judge smirked. Request denied. Defendant is present. Plaintiff is absent. Case dismissed. Just like that, done. Karen's entire legal attack vanished like dust in the wind. I stepped out of the courthouse, looked up at the sky, and let the Montana sun warm my face. I thought of Marlene. I thought of my father, who built that first barn with his own hands. I thought of every sleepless night spent sitting on my porch, waiting for the next attack. And I thought of Karen, driven by pride, by power, by a desperate need to control something that was never hers to begin with. She thought I was a bump in the road, but she didn't realize she was trying to bulldoze a mountain. 2 days later, Sheriff Bill Haynes himself drove up to my ranch. He stepped out with a thick folder in his hand and a smile on his weathered face. Afternoon, Daniel. Bill. I nodded. He handed me the file. Final report. Everything we found on Karen. She's been officially removed from the Willow Creek HOA board. The HOA itself is under state investigation for mismanagement. He pulled out a second folder. And as for your land, a broken bar, he smiled again. The rezoning attempt is void. The county has issued a permanent freeze on any changes to your parcel for 10 years. You're safe. I exhaled deeply, probably for the first time in months. Appreciate it, Bill. He clapped me on the shoulder. You didn't just fight for yourself, Daniel. You stood up for every homeowner bullied by fake authority with too much time and too little heart. He got back into his cruiser and drove off. I just stood there, watching the sunset over my land, my ranch and mine. Later that week, Clarice from Channel 6 came back for a follow-up interview. She stood under the barn awning, rain gently tapping the tin roof. Mr. Rhodes, any final thoughts for our viewers now that the dust has settled? I thought for a moment, then said simply, never let anyone make you feel like you don't belong on your own land. Fight with truth, stand your ground, and always record everything. She laughed. I smiled. The camera clicked off. Weeks passed, then months. The fields bloomed again. The chickens laid more eggs than I could eat. Daisy gave birth to a calf. Marlene came home and baked 3 pies just because she could. Karen Morgan? Last I heard, she was awaiting trial in another county, facing up to 15 years in federal prison. The ranch stayed quiet after that, but every so often, I'd find new tire tracks near the back gate, someone testing the line, wondering if I was still paying attention. I was, and I always would be, because I'm not part of any hoe. I'm the owner of this land, and no one, not Karen, not Kyle, not any clipboard-wielding bureaucrat is ever taking it from me, not without a war. So, to anyone out there listening, if you're fighting your own Karen, don't back down, don't get bitter, get louder, Get smarter. And when the lights go out, the broken bar, light your own fire. Now, tell me, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've ever dealt with a nightmare neighbor or a horror story, share it with us. We've got your back. Till next time, stay strong, stay free, and keep your gate locked.